Welcome. In this video, we will guide you through the disassembly, repair, and reassembly of Viking Pumps 4195 series internal gear pumps. This video will cover KE through QS size pumps. Before you begin, please consult the appropriate technical service manual for safety information. A copy of the latest revision can be found on our website at vikingpump.com. To begin, drain the pump of any residual liquid. Turning the shaft will help expel any liquid trapped in the gear teeth. Mark the head and casing before disassembly to ensure proper reassembly. Loosen and remove the head cap screws. Remove the head by tilting it backward to prevent the idler from falling off the idler pin. Remove and discard the head O-ring. Insert a brass bar or piece of hardwood into the port opening and between the rotor teeth to keep the shaft from turning. Bend up the tang of the lock washer and remove the locknut and lock washer from the shaft. Loosen the two set screws on the face of the bearing housing. Remove the bearing housing. Remove the bearing spacer collar. Remove the bearing spacer from the shaft. Remove the brass bar. The rotor shaft assembly can now be removed from the pump. A soft-headed hammer may be needed to tap on the end of the shaft to aid with removal. The rotary member of the seal will come out with the rotor shaft. Remove the stationary seat from the casing bore. Remove the bearing spacer collar. Loosen the set screws on the mechanical seal and remove the seal from the shaft. Remove the inner bearing from the casing. The outer bearing is located in the bearing housing. To access, the bearing end cap will need to be removed. Loosen and remove the radial set screws. Remove the end cap using a spanner wrench. Remove and replace the bearing. Make sure to replace the bearing end cap, set screws, and PTFE plugs as well. Inspect pump parts for wear, particularly critical parts such as the idler pin, idler bushing, idler gear, rotor shaft, and casing. Replace any worn components. It is recommended not to reuse the mechanical seal after it has been removed from the pump. Clean the rotor hub and casing bore. Make sure both are free of dirt or grit. Coat the idler pin with a compatible lubricant and place the idler on the idler pin. Coat the outer diameter of the seal seat with a compatible O-ring lubricant. Then press the seal seat into the seal housing bore, ensuring that the unlapped face is fully seated in the bottom of the bore. Next, place the tapered installation sleeve on the shaft. Coat the sleeve and inner diameter of the seal rotary member with a generous amount of O-ring lubricant. Slide the seal with the lapped surface facing up and away from the rotor over the installation sleeve until it's just contacting the back of the rotor. Next, tighten the seal set screws evenly. Remove the installation sleeve. Next, install the rotor shaft into the casing. Slide the rotor shaft until the rotor teeth are just below the face of the casing. Take care not to damage the seal seat. Lubricate and install the head O-ring. Next, install the head and idler assemblies onto the pump, ensuring the proper location of the pin and crescent. The idler pin, which is offset in the pump head, must be positioned toward and equal distance between the port connections to allow proper flow of liquid through the pump. Install and tighten the head cap screws evenly. Next, coat the inner diameter of the bearing, bearing spacer, and bearing spacer collar with an anti-fretting agent. Install the bearing spacer collar over the shaft and into the bore. Install the inner bearing. Install the bearing spacer so it is against the bearing. Start 2 set screws into the face of the bearing housing. Next, install the bearing housing assembly until it is hand tight. Install the bearing spacer collar. Install the lock washer, making sure to line up the inner tang with the slot on the shaft. Finally, install the lock nut. Insert a brass bar or piece of hardwood into the port opening between the rotor teeth to keep the shaft from turning. Tighten the lock nut to the appropriate torque value. These values can be found in the technical service manual. Remove the brass bar. Bend a tang of the lock washer into a slot of the lock nut. If a tang does not line up with the slot, tighten the lock nut until it does. Failure to tighten the lock nut or engage the lock washer tang could result in early bearing failure and cause damage to the pump. Tighten the thrust bearing assembly clockwise until the shaft can no longer be turned by hand. Then loosen until the rotor shaft can be turned with a slight noticeable drag. This point is known as zero end clearance. Mark the position of the bearing housing with respect to the casing. You are now ready to set the end clearance and lock in place with the bearing housing set screws. For information on this step, please refer to our video, Setting End Clearance. Your Viking Pump 4195 series internal gear pump is fully repaired and ready to be put back into service. For more information, please contact your local Viking Pump distributor or visit our website at vikingpump.com.